You found it. It's time for the RAAD Life, the place where really cool people hang out. Brought to you by our resident raconteur, community storyteller, RAAD, Gantos and his friends. Who would you bring today?
Did you give me? Can I speak now?
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
I have to cut you off because
Paul has gotten into this habit. I don't know. Maybe he finally learned after 7 years, but we got to talk about this. You can't just be the only one talking on the introduction.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
that's historically what the intro is.
You said you're like you found it, and I'm like, we did. What did we find? Right? I mean, it's a rich environment for heckling you from the sidelines during the intro.
Is it not called a wildlife?
No, he said you found it, like to the audience, like they found it. I'm like, what is it that they found? Like
they were looking.
I feel responsible now. Eureka is not the name of the show. And then it's Raconteurs.
Raconteurs. All right. So
because there's twos of us.
I thought you were the storyteller and he was the story.
Well, he is always the story. Pascal has been the story since '85.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yep. Yes. Keep going.
Yeah, the story keeps on going.
We have a special
We
guest.
do have a special guest, and I'm really excited about this because it's a very timely topic.
Yes.
And it's something that, just a little background for some people, when we started the show a long time ago, you know, I feel like I've aged on the show. Have I? Yes, I've aged on the show. Like we started this show 9 years ago.
Wow.
And other than a little hiatus, which ties into actually this conversation we're having today.
How come I look older and you still look the same?
Oh, come on! You don't look a day older than
90
when I first met you. No,
I think it's about your philosophy.
What philosophy?
Your philosophy of life.
Young philosophy.
My long philosophy of life.
Yeah.
You don't let anything really bug you. Yeah, pretty much, right? But no, I when we started the show, because every time we have somebody that is sort of either elderly services related or just we're all getting older, like nobody's getting out of this alive. We started the show because Paul said, we wanted to do a baby boomer show, and but we don't know what it would be like. And I said, well, one problem, I'm not a baby boomer. He goes, well, we'll call you a baby boomer wannabe. Mind you, he is a poster child baby boomer, right? So that worked out really well for the show because all I had to do is point to him and say, hey, baby boomer corner, could you give us your input from a generational perspective? And we really kind of dove really right head first into like topics that people don't talk about. People don't really either don't want to talk about them, or they really don't know that they're going to need to talk about them,
or they don't know how to talk about them.
Or to be honest, where like our parents, for example, or generations in the past, they kind of shielded us from it.
Yeah.
So you're not really prepared for some things that come with life, whether you're in a caregiver position or whether you're the person dealing with it. And a lot of people, I think, and we will touch on this, I'm sure, but a lot of people also think that it is sort of age in terms of numbers related, and it's not necessarily the case. And it's not, and with early detections and stuff like that, it becomes even more so. Like used to be, there's a high increase in cancer, and I'm like, well, is it really, or is it that we have better detection processes now, right? So with that, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yes, our name is Angelica Petris. And
it really sounds better when you say it.
It really does.
That's why I had him introduce
it's a beautiful name. And actually what she does is really amazing. And because she's helped families and people who have the disease to get them through it. And because, the person who has the disease with Alzheimer, and it's not the only one suffering from it.
No, of course not. And I think this is why, because I have a personal reference point, and when we started, like I said, when we started doing the show, part of me thought I was being a little too clever. Okay, and was like, I just turned 50, I come from an extended family. I know I'm going to be facing certain things. So maybe I'll use the show to kind of like prep myself, right? And we had everybody that is, whether past gatekeepers in the community or people that were authors. Michael Demeritz has been on. I mean, there's been so many people. They'll come to me while we're talking. But
Tanya Brown.
but there were a lot of people that were also the gatekeepers in the community when it came to elderly
Oh,
and
yeah,
seniors
right.
and aging. Council on Aging, Alzheimer's OC, the people from all over the place. And I always found it to be where there was, in many cases, a personal connection. Like somebody who is involved in this care provision or the service provision side of it, which is so much demand and so limited resources in terms of availability. And then there's a lack of knowledge about those resources to begin with, right? And so I'm trying to paint this picture because this was 9 years ago, people, right? And it's not like, oh, all of a sudden we're talking about this, right? And because I'm setting the stage purposely about talking about when do we actually finally accept the fact that we need to dig our head out of the sand and look at this? When 2060 comes around and 26% of the population in Orange County is now 65 years and older.
We have to do it now.
Right, exactly. Right? And it ripples across a lot of sectors. It ripples across the medical side of things, the care side of things. To your point, I think you touched on it a little bit about how it basically doesn't just impact the person who is suffering.
Family.
Right.
And this is nothing bigger for the community, because, you have the relationship with everybody around you. And we want to inform the community that there is help.
So, Angelica, the reason I guess I'm kind of just setting the stage for people is because it's also important how you found yourself into this. Because I think I've experienced it from caregivers for my father, for example. It takes a very special kind of person to put themselves in this situation. And I'll spare one aspect of this until we get a little deeper into it. But how did you find yourself in this field? Is there a personal story? Is there a, share with us that journey? Because I think your current role is your current role, but how did you journey to this place?
And by looking at your curriculum vitae, she progressively got there from.
Yeah, and I know that, and I'm sorry, this is just me being very curious, right? It's not so much the academics, because there's something more DNA in people who are drawn to this calling.
Yeah.
First,
Right.
can you give us your full title of your?
Yeah, like where are you at now, and because you're local.
Yes. So I am the Community Outreach and Education Manager at Alzheimer's Family Center, and we're located in Huntington Beach. We're a nonprofit adult day health center, and we are specifically focused on dementia care. So our patients that come to us are from all stages, from beginning stages, mild cognitive impairment, all the way to advanced stages. And so it makes it really interesting to see, all the stages in each, kind of individual, how it manifests itself. And we try to really tailor our curriculum and our, the way we are hands-on with our care accordingly to our patients.
How long has the organization or the nonprofit been there?
We've been here for about 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah, quite some time.
And I have to say, I don't want people to think it's a medical place. It's not. It's really a place where support and help the patient to go through the day by day.
Yes.
And then I will explain more that I experience it because I visit the place several times. I help them on some needs, something like that.
So would you? I mean, it's going to simplify this a little bit, but would you refer to your facility as being almost like what we'd refer to as elder daycare?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's an adult.
In its primary
adult.
it's in its primary function.
Yeah, I think that
It's not an assisted living.
No,
It's a
not.
day activities like people aren't staying over.
Exactly.
So, again, I'm trying to demystify because
Yes,
people
you're
don't
right.
really understand
Oh, yeah.
these multiple layers
Like-
of services that are
Like
available.
you can drop your loved one.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
in the
think a lot
morning.
of people don't understand what adult day health center is, and I mean, I myself couldn't even define it for you before I started
Right.
here, and really, to really even simplify it more, it's sort of that middle ground where you want to keep your person at home,
Yeah.
but they still need extra care.
Yeah.
They need that extra support, and they're not quite ready for assisted living just yet, or maybe it's just a factor of I'm really not ready to put my person in there yet. I want them to stay at home with me as long as possible, and we offer that.
Or you can do half and half.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I think to Angelica's point is that every case is different. The progression of cognitive impairment is different in every single individual.
It sure is.
You can't
yeah.
just basically just pile them all together and deal with them as a group.
No.
Right? And for people that are thinking, because I think if you are, if you're fortunate enough to have an infrastructure of support, like you are either, living close to your parents, or or maybe it's a loved one. It could be even it could be a spouse. In some cases, it could be early onset, right? So it could even be somebody who's like an older child, even, right? And your reality is you're a working person. In many cases, primary person who it falls on is the wife, the mother, the lady of the house.
Yes.
And basically, they're holding a job. In some cases, they may have a child in college, for example, or a younger child because they're taking care of a parent.
Yeah, the sandwich generation.
The sandwich generation, right? I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm telling you, I mean, I prepared for 7 years. I thought I prepared for 7 years to be able to deal with this. And as much as you prepare, I'm here to tell you that until you are actually in it,
Yeah.
you don't understand completely what is entailed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So arm yourself with the knowledge because you need to pull on that, right? And the resources, especially, like knowing the fact, like I didn't know when I first heard adult daycare.
Yeah.
All I could equate it to is when I'm dropping off a parent that's basically going to be dealt with like almost like a child, like a daycare.
Yeah,
right?
we're going to have
But
activities.
it completely not the case.
Right, exactly.
But that's my own language is language, right? So that's the
Yes.
only reference point I could have.
And
Right.
but the activity that they have also are helping the patient
Absolutely.
Correct.
to slow the progress of
Yes.
the disease.
No, but the reason I'm sharing this from a personal perspective is because even if you're that kind of person that is, I am going to step up and I'm going to take care of that loved one. I'm going to put my life, readjust my life to do that. First of all, the adjustment is very difficult.
Oh, yeah,
It's not an
absolutely.
easy adjustment.
No.
So you need as much help as you can muster,
It takes a
right?
village,
It's
yeah.
also not cheap. Like say you're doing that in-home care or that caring for a loved one in their home.
Yeah.
Like if you're fortunate enough to have a house in Orange County today,
Right.
where you can actually accommodate the care of somebody who has cognitive impairment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let alone in my case with my father, we had Parkinson's and dementia
Oh,
at the same time, right? So the double duty, and Paul is pointing to him. Yeah, he dealt with the same thing.
It touches
Right.
everybody.
Yeah, so it's a complicated situation, and because of the decline happening in front of you, like it changes you. It affects your own mindset, how your relationships are, your extended interactions with people, because
Absolutely.
you're under this constant stress, and you're constantly, if you happen to be financially viable for you to actually have in-home care, A, it's not cheap.
No.
B, the quality of the care varies with as many
Across the board.
agencies are out there, right?
Yeah.
So you need advocates that can guide you,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
From a nonprofit perspective, to where and how to evaluate the care. It took us 8 months to adjust the care for my father,
yeah,
right? And
Also,
it's-
the beauty of it, the patient also are not alone. Or they have other patients.
there's
do
a there's
activities
there's
together.
Exactly.
there's
yeah.
a community.
It
Yeah,
is.
socialization. It's exactly what is, it's the one of the, if not the most important component in slowing progression or preventing it. So it is absolutely imperative that we have a sense of community and socialization.
Engagement, and you can't and I guess where I was going is First of all, doing it on your own, even if you have the financial means and the physically safe environment that you can provide that safety for a loved one in, it's overwhelming. It's not healthy for them to be isolated, even if you're lucky enough to have a caregiver that's really genuinely engaged,
Yeah.
right? And you really should look at things like this to enrich their lives. I mean, I think I remember one time when somebody said to me, life sustaining, and I said, well, what do you mean like life sustaining? And they said, well, life sustaining services, like, the shuttle that takes people to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what about the shuttle that takes people to, like, that can't drive anymore or that shouldn't be driving anymore to actually be able to hang out and socialize with their friends?
Right.
Oh, those are life enhancing services. We don't have those.
Isn't that crazy? And I keep discovering more and more in this field what exactly is considered the sort of health care for aging adults and what isn't, and you're just like, are you serious?
It's like minimum denominator, right? It's like it's the daily activities kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And this, I know we're throwing a lot of language out here for people who are not familiar with this, but really you need to educate yourself, because it could I don't know anybody who has any proximity of a relationship, a close relationship with a loved one. Mm-hmm. Could be an in-law, it could be a neighbor, whatever. That the way that we are going with the medical advancement and increased life expectancy for people and the drop in birth rates for children, I don't know anybody who is not going to be touched by this.
Oh, absolutely.
First through a third party, and then when it comes time for you,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you would be lucky to get out of this life being a third party to somebody with dementia, Alzheimer's. But I mean, absolutely right. We're seeing the baby boomers aging out, and we're seeing higher numbers, of course, because the baby boomer generation was the large generation. So
I mean, we provide a caregiving service for Paul here every week.
he's doing really well.
Yes, I know. It's because we don't cut him any slack.
This is
He's
my adult
engaged.
daycare
Keep those
center.
keep those connections stimulated. Yeah.
We speak sarcasm very well in this studio. Yeah.
Whatever we can do for you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. I will tell you that nobody's ready for this. I think it's the Peter Pan generation, the baby boomers. We're going to be young forever. I still dress like I'm 30. I still think like I'm 30. And when your parents are suddenly wearing diapers and you're having to change them, it's a big shock.
Well, but here's the thing you guys did. Okay, baby boomers actually had kids,
Yeah.
right? Gen Xers,
Maybe,
a bunch of people
yeah.
delayed being married. Some people didn't have kids. You have a lot of single people. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because don't assume that infrastructure of support
Right.
is built in. And
Yeah.
hey, guys versus ladies, we are terrible. Men are terrible at building a network of social support.
Yeah.
Okay? Because we put our head down and it's like this, and it's like if you're lucky to have one or two people that you know, let alone that you have a close enough relationship with, right? So we don't have that support network that women are very good at actually maintaining. So when you start talking about a generational shift from baby boomers, and you got Gen Xers coming in, I'm basically first year of Gen X.
Okay.
Right? So I got no kids. Right?
Yeah.
So you really have to know, and the social component, and it's actually, Angelica, it's an interesting thing that you kind of highlighted that, because in the 7 years we were doing the show and kind of touching on aging stuff, we never really understood, I think, completely, and it's getting more and more attention these days, that importance of that social component. Like from your
Right.
mental health perspective,
Oh
even,
my
right?
gosh, yeah.
Talking about
Like-
aging, have you noticed that your patients are actually living longer now than they used to?
I mean, that's a good question. We do, because I'm in such a bubble where the common age, you're considered young in there if you're in your 70s, really. So I will say that we do see people, in their 80s, early 90s at our
Yeah,
facility.
you told me a story about someone was 93.
Yeah, my grandmother, my nana, was 93 when she passed away. She was healthy as a horse, but she was showing signs of cognitive impairment. And so it's definitely, we are seeing it sort of manifest later. But to your point, I think that it's almost a sign of the zeitgeist as well, right? We know that, oh, maybe mom or grandma's just a little kooky or a little forgetful, or they're very highly independent or isolated. So we were paying less attention, I think, or at least giving it more forgiveness. And now we're being forced to reckon with it as more people are aging and those numbers are boosting.
Well, I'll tell you, my mother covered for my father.
Exactly. We see that a lot
right?
too.
And my mother covered for my father while she was still diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh my.
So, and if I know, for example, that my grandfather had, had Alzheimer's and was bedridden for a couple of years, but we never really engaged. Part of it was they were in Chicago, we're here. But so to your point, I think sometimes the forgiveness or that's just aging, whatever, and you're starting to see more and more people challenge that. More and more people challenge that from an academic or from a research perspective. That no, the assumption that this is just part of getting older.
Yes.
That you should have these, sometimers moments or like cognitive impairment. I mean, we all forget.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
We have so much data being bombarded on us every day that, if we remember it all, then something even is probably worse with us.
We forget some, we remember more.
Hey, I remember, I
Right.
forget, how many times have you forgotten where you put your keys down? Or
Yeah.
the most famous things, like, where's my iPhone, right? Like, I mean, how many, right?
As I'm talking
where'd
on
I
my
leave,
iPhone.
where did I leave my iPhone?
Yeah,
like,
where's
everybody
my
I know
iPhone?
basically
Oh.
keeps looking for their phone.
somebody to ask
Right, and
them
if you
where
don't
it is.
believe me, then why would Apple have put a search thing on your tablets where you could find your iPhone if they
Yeah.
if people
Our plate is too full.
so that's
Yeah.
but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that societally we accept the fact that certain things are just part of aging.
Yes.
Whereas it's not necessary, because to your point, if you're socially engaged, if there's something that mentally stimulating, your level of output should be maybe has dropped a little, right? The things that interested you before maybe don't interest you, but just assume that you are just bound for this path without any slowdown potential or whatever is not necessarily true.
Right, absolutely. And you're bringing up so many good points, so I just want to kind of touch back on a couple.
Yeah.
For example, my background is in social work, and you talk about societal expectations of people. I feel like we could have a whole segment on that kind of stuff.
It's true.
I know.
But
you help veterans too.
Yeah, I worked
So,
at the
I think
VA
that-
with veterans, so
it's a huge thing.
absolutely. My family, we're a family of military, so I definitely have seen, different walks of life in which people have experienced different journeys. But
And you help also homeless as well.
I worked as a homeless liaison for a charter school, yes. So there's, I think, to kind of circle back, I think what's happening right now is that the awareness is coming, one, because of the boomers, and also, two, what we're seeing is a lot of younger people are getting it. So when it starts to happen to the young people, guess what? People start paying attention, because this was, just like you said, seen as like an old person.
But do you think it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right? Is it that young people are getting it, or is it that we are finally, and maybe rightfully or wrongfully, diagnosing it with young people, whereas in the past we were like, oh, that's that crazy guy down the street.
It's a great question.
Talking to themselves kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And to your point with the military, again, language is so important. I think people underestimate language and the importance of terminologies and words that we use, right? And the reason why we do this show is because we really believe in the impact and power of conversation, even especially when it's organic. Like, we don't have an agenda here where we're going to end up at the end of the show, but we're having a discussion, and the richness of the exchange is really where the value lies, right?
Absolutely.
And that doesn't happen a lot anymore.
No, it
I would
doesn't.
say it's like cancer. We have cancer, but we don't know how the cancer came to you.
Yes.
And so, but are we doing on research for?
That's, that is a good question. Do I believe that we're doing enough research? No. But are we seeing a lot of innovative treatments coming along right now? Yes. But to, the chicken or the egg, that is the question, right? We know, to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, is it is a lot of lifestyle involved. And so, yeah, if you have mental health issues, we know for a fact right now that poor mental health, it practically triples your probability of getting dementia.
Well, and here's the thing that's kind of interesting, and I think this is where opportunity sometimes lies, if we are willing to look at it. And the same by the same token, again with language, is like if we actually stop using terminologies like, I mean, yes, the disease is dementia, the disease is Alzheimer's. There's different layers and different types of it, right? Which again, people are now sensory overloaded. You had me at dementia, then you lost me the minute you said that there's multiple different types, right?
Right, exactly.
Right? And I'm not familiar with it, and then when I'm facing it, now I'm basically, my back's against the wall, and I got to get really up to speed very quickly about it, and it's overwhelming, and now I'm basically fried, right? Okay, but I think if you start talking about it, and it's kind of good that we are, about mental health, then this is just one thing that is happening that is in the realm of mental health. The same as when you talk about PTSD and veterans. That's another layer of mental health. And I think when you take and we are great, this society is amazing. They like to compartmentalize things into the smallest little package and not have it be a complex issue, because then I can understand it, I can put it on the shelf, and has a clean label on it. But when it comes to stuff that's complex, we are challenged sometimes. So when we start talking about mental health and we start looking at it from a perspective of anything more than dementia, aging, elderly, whatever, some of us are just going to be overloaded. But others, I think, there's where opportunity lies. It's the same thing as when we say affordable housing. And the first thing that comes to mind with people is drop in real estate values in my backyard. Oh, no, not going to happen. The minute you start talking about it, expand it to where it's now about workforce housing, it's about how your kids that are born and raised in communities in Orange County can't afford to start their lives in Orange County. But if you actually found a solution for them to do that, they can continue to be contributing members of their communities that were born and raised in. Seniors the same way. Why are people holding on to their houses?
These are easier trouble to fix.
But it's all interrelated.
Yeah.
It's all interrelated. If you don't have alternative housing options, which have dignity of life and quality of life that does not depreciate, okay, for people that are aging, okay, especially if they are feeling that they are basically having a little bit of cognitive issues or impairment issues, right? They want to stay in a familiar environment that is safe, makes perfect sense. But if you don't have that ability to do that, now they are staying in their homes.
Yes.
Now there's no inventory in real estate. Now there's no more places for people. It's all connected if we choose to look at it that way. And the solutions can be equally, not only holistically provided, but also where they are profitable, both in terms of mental health increases, societal engagement. But the problem is that we have these little silos of conversation, right? And the reason I was looking forward to having you on is because with your background academically, I think it's unavoidable for you not to see the dots.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking my language,
right?
You're speaking the social work language.
Right.
She's living it.
Yeah,
Right.
it was. I mean, one of the reasons why I got into geriatrics in the first place is, you're encouraged to sort of pick a specialty, and there's so many issues,
Right?
So many, and going through my grad school years, I was like, oh, I'm going to focus on, feminist rights. Oh, I'm going to focus on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was that your goal?
Yeah, initially I came in because I wanted to focus on substance abuse, and I went through, and then I was like, oh my gosh,
Well, it could be related.
yeah, oh, absolutely. They're all interrelated. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so, it's each year I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be a child advocate. Oh no, I'm going to jump in here for animals. And then I started working at the VA with veterans, and that really, it piqued my interest because of the fact that they are just so disregarded by society. And I worked at the one in West LA where they literally have tent city right outside. I was not allowed to walk in or off base.
Right off Santa Monica.
Yeah, without somebody escorting me. And you're sitting here wondering, how am I helping when the population is sitting right here on the sidewalk and we're just disregarding
Like
them?
nobody's doing anything.
No, and it's it could be contributed to mental health. It could be contributed to aging without that social aspect that somebody can take care of them. It could be substance, all of the things, but we're just not addressing it, and that goes back to anything that's sort of age related or mental health, where really it's kind of behind the scenes. We can't see mental health happening, and we can't see dementia happening. We can see aging, but they're a population where we tend to say you don't matter anymore because you're not,
One of the most difficult things to deal with is, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm living proof. I went through this where for 2.5 years we took care of Dad. First year, it was such a paradigm shift
Oh yeah.
from the reality of our lives, and that's with 24-hour care that we could afford to pay.
Yeah,
And I'm here to tell, and I'm here to, no, absolutely not. We had a physical environment that, from my design background, we designed the house that they built and moved into 2000 to accommodate aging, to have no step up, step downs, to have a guest bedroom downstairs, to have a potential for an elevator should somebody be mobilely impaired, but not necessarily where they cannot be independent, right?
Wow, that's
right.
fantastic.
So we did that, all of it. Okay, and I credit my involvement with the hotel business and the sort of the American Disabilities Act and requirements, which everybody poo-poos from a development. Oh my God, I got to deal with ADA. Okay, yeah, that's your parent, your grandparent, your child who just broke their leg playing Pop Warner football that benefits from these things. So every developer out there that's poo-pooing having to do ADA, I suggest you look at it from the perspective of, I can accommodate these people.
Yes.
These people are spending money. The other property that's my competitor doesn't have these kind of things. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to make some dollars even in this, right? But within a year of taking care of Dad, with the help of 24-hour care, you literally become that parent that, I mean, I don't have kids, so I'm assuming the parent that is waiting for the phone call in the middle of the night, for the shoe to fall, right? For like something to happen, now you got to rush. So you're constantly in hold mode.
Fight or flight.
You're fight or flight. You're in this like rubber band in tight format, right? And it changes you.
Absolutely.
It totally changes you, right? But here's the kicker. It also wakes you up. It wakes you up to the fact that if you're going to really be there for that person, you need to take care of your own mental health
Yes.
to be able to perform when it really happens that you need to do something.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. So at Alzheimer's Family Center, we offer counseling for patients who can benefit, and for the caregivers.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when I'm sitting there on the couch, these are the topics that we discuss. Caregivers, there is a statistic that says that caregivers tend to pass away before the people they're caring for. And you just nailed it. It's because you are constantly living in this hypervigilance of fight or flight. You're probably putting your needs secondary to the person you're caring for.
For sure you are.
Yeah, financially, that's even.
And you're
enough
trying to run your own business.
You get depressed.
You get depressed.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then it's like you can't talk about it because, well, look, this guy has, my loved one has dementia.
Right.
I can't talk about how sad I am. This person's
every chance I had once I was going through this, especially, and again, I'm not picking on my fellow guys, right? But I made a point of actually, whenever somebody indicated to me that they may be going through this, and believe you me, if you start talking to people around you, there's a lot of people going through this right now, right?
Yes.
That are in that Gen X, or like a younger boomer, that are okay,
somebody.
It's 2 degrees of separation. Trust me.
Yeah.
Open that conversation, you will be shocked how many people are dealing with this, right? But I started saying things like, look, you don't have to feel bad for actually saying to yourself openly, this stuff is stressful and sucks.
Exactly. I say that I mean,
It doesn't disrespect the person you're caring for, but you
Nope.
got to accept the fact that that's the case. And this was the biggest revelation for me.
right.
My mother has stage 4 lung cancer. She lasts about 2.5 years. My father now has dementia. I'm not necessarily like pointing out because of my choice of news channel or not. It's not actually. But on CNN, Anderson Cooper had a special. And he talked about his grandmother who basically had Alzheimer's,
I saw that.
right? And he used a term that it completely made everything make sense. He said it was anticipatory grief.
Wow.
Everybody thinks that it's you lose somebody, you go through a normal grieving process,
Yes.
right? But anticipatory grief is the anticipation of loss
Yeah.
over an extended period of time that is completely different from
Huge.
grief,
Hugely
right?
different.
Then
yeah.
if you have multiple things happening either in sequence and during the time we're talking about it was also COVID. So
Ouch,
you
yeah.
now have multiple points of grief. So you have compounded grief, you have anticipatory grief, and then you have the actual grief,
Yeah, he's
right?
several.
And
stages.
society is expecting you to kind of match some sort of timeline to get
Yeah.
through this, right?
Absolutely.
When you never really get through it, you just adjust your life to basically just be part of your story now,
Yeah.
right?
But you have to prepare yourself.
Right. So the reason why I'm saying not only expose yourself to stuff like learning the language, knowing that there was something I could actually now label that explained what I was going through
Yes, absolutely.
made an unbelievable difference. I was empowered by the knowledge of the words anticipatory grief to understand why it had the impact it had on me.
Yeah, and that's something that, oftentimes I'll get asked, like, what, as a counselor for patients with Alzheimer's or dementia, are they remembering what you're talking about? And what I have found is that it's not about what they're going to remember. It's about giving people the vocabulary to describe
explain
what they're
what's
going
going
through.
through. Yeah,
'cause
absolutely.
I'm not going to take it away. And let me tell you, my first year was doing counseling was rough because all I wanted to do was just carry the weight of this burden on my own shoulders. And really, at the end of the day, I can only sit and listen. And sometimes that's all people need. And they'll walk out of that session and be like, I feel so much better. And it's just, I hadn't said 2 words. And sometimes it's literally just me saying, yeah, that sucks. And they're like, it does suck.
Somebody needed to give them they needed to be given permission
Yes.
to actually like own what they were feeling
Yeah.
and have the vocabulary to explain it. Yeah, it's fascinating because like I started off earlier, it takes it's not an easy task for somebody in a care capacity or a counseling capacity to be dealing with this because like I would look at these caregivers and we got really lucky. Like we got really lucky after 8 months of vetting, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we vetted the caregivers longer than it took them to vet a vice president, right? But it's like, it took us 8 months to vet, and we ended up with a couple of really good people, and one of them specifically, I still can't wrap my mind around how you go from one case where you are the primary caregiver or 1 out of 2 primary caregivers for somebody that is going to die. And then after that, with all the emotional, because it's genuinely a connection, it's a relationship that gets developed, right? Then you now, basically, after a short period of time, put yourself through that again.
Right.
And I don't care that it's a
Can I say-
career
can-
or the money. They cannot pay you enough. It takes a certain kind of person
Right.
to be a giver, to have that kind of a heart, to be able to do that job. And there's a reason why we don't have enough people, as much as we have demand and need for people.
Right.
Do you agree if we say that Alzheimer is not a deadly disease? Alzheimer is slowing down disease.
That's a really good question. And I actually, recently I attended a seminar for those who medically wanted to in their lives, and that was the one of the biggest reasons why people seek it, which is these terminal diseases. And they formulated their phrasing like that. They said, Alzheimer's it slows life down, and it's true. Alzheimer's, what people think is that I get dementia or Alzheimer's, now I'm going to die. And that is not the case. The body, the brain, it starts to break down. And we see people who end up having, heart issues or breathing issues. But really, it's the breakdown of the body and the mind that leads to something else, ending life. But it is not a death sentence.
And I think the families need, the loved one need to know that.
Oh yeah, people who have sat in my chair from all different educational experiences of dementia have thought this is it, dad's got a one-way ticket, and it's not the case. Dad's healthy, he exercises every day, he eats well, he takes his medication. Dad can live for years that way, and even the same way, to kind of go back to the point of how we live our life, it will dictate how slow the progression is, and even it's preventative. We know that if we are doing physical exercise, eating healthy, staying away from smoking and excessive drinking, things like that, we are really elongating our quality of life as well as our lives itself. And we have patients at Alzheimer's Family Center who we've had for years. I myself have patients that I see in counseling, for numerous years, who have not changed cognitively since day one. And it is all about how you are approaching it's going to make a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. The duration of the decline even is not there's no set path.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are like, what should I expect?
Right.
That's like a very common question.
And
what can I expect?
by the way, not even like, you can't even look at family history for that. My grandfather basically had Alzheimer and was bedridden for a while, and it was a number of years. My father actually passed not because of the dementia. He passed because of the Parkinson's. Because he had an aspiration situation where the food went down. It was right after Thanksgiving. Food went down the wrong passage. And then every time when you're at that point and your health is sort of impaired, every time you have an incident, could be as simple as a UTI, could be simple as anything, your recovery time is slower. Sometimes you don't recover as fully as from where you started off with.
Correct.
So all of these things are things to be aware of.
Yeah, which is why COVID, by the way, was so devastating to our population.
Horrible.
One, because we had to isolate. Yeah. We had to isolate, which we just talked about how socialization is probably the most important thing you need as you age. But then, you get some little symptom of COVID, and your, ability to recover is nothing, and wipes you out.
Let's talk about your center.
Yeah.
Let's give us what will be the day of a patient and his choice during the day.
Yeah, a typical day for like a patient.
Yeah, so we open our doors for our patients at 9 a.m. and we have our staff usually greeting them at the front door. From there, we have our agency has 2 different areas depending on the amount of care that's needed for a patient. So we have what's called New Connections, or we have Friendship Club. New Connections is for our higher functioning patients, and there they'll go in and they will do a lot of activities. All of our curriculum is evidence backed. So they'll do trivia, they'll do puzzles, they'll do a lot of like interacting with, we have these specialty computer programs for them. They do a lot of group work together so that they're socializing and they're able to do relevant topic answer. And it's, we do art, we do music, all these types of things that are meant to stimulate different parts of the brain.
Even gardening, a little bit.
Gardening, yes.
Yeah.
So we actually have a garden on site, and in our kitchen for lunch, we have a dietitian there, and the patients are able to prepare their own food based off of what they're able to pick
They have
out
a
of the
great
garden.
kitchen.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and we make the best chocolate chip cookies there. It's maybe the dietitian wouldn't always recommend that, but I'll take them. I'm happy to take them. But then we have Friendship Club. Friendship Club is for those who do need a higher level of care, and that is actually split into two. So it's sort of like the higher functioning and lower functioning. And depending on where the patients are, they have more gameplay, more art, more music based. We have, for the ones that need the highest form of care, we have these opportunities where they can have these lifelike baby dolls and animals, and they can, walk around and be able to share that and talk about them. And they do these really amazing activities where they identify where they're from or where they want to travel, and they can pick it out onto a map that's like a huge screen, and people feel like they're able to get that experience. So it's really, I feel like, enriching for our patients. We allow them to come and go throughout the halls. We want them to be able to have that independence and that ability to interact. They are monitored closely by social workers, of course. But we have a beautiful patio area. A lot of, right now it's a little too hot, but normally patients will go out there, get some sunbathing in. We have activities out there when it's nice. We have fun, when it's the holiday, we do events. Like we've got an upcoming event for the patients, where it's like a luau, where the staff has to wear Hawaiian-based stuff, and then they judge us who wins the sort of luau competition. They do that for Halloween too. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to get to know each other. And, at any point in time, we have anywhere from 50 to, I think I saw the other day, we had about 90 patients on site. And,
You can't get that at home.
no, you
No,
definitely
no,
can't.
and that's why I pointed it out because
Yeah.
everybody assumes, okay, I have a safe home, I have the financial means, but there's stuff that isn't what your dollars can get you.
Yes.
That is equally important for the health and well-being of that individual, that your loved
Yes,
one, and
exactly.
that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. Because it's also hard, I think, for some people to also feel responsible, but then also understand that part of the responsibility is to allow that person to be in that environment 2-3 times a week, maybe,
Oh, yes.
where they're not there caring for them.
100%.
Right? And I think for women too, because whether it's because of being mothers or it's just the nurturing component, sometimes it's difficult. You feel almost like irresponsible dropping them off. It's like,
Well-
I dropped off my kids at school and I didn't feel good about it. I'm going to drop a loved one like at daycare and
But you
adult
need
daycare.
I think if you're
You need
a
that
loved one,
social
you need
engagement.
to be able to go on your life too.
Yeah, but
Yes.
people, I think, suffer from not doing that, and the reason why they don't do it, it's not because they are consciously not doing it. It's because nobody tells them, A, this is something you are going to face as a challenge, and B, it doesn't make you a lesser person if you actually balance your life. Because if you
Yes.
don't, then when that that loved one needs you, you're not going to be in a physical, emotional, or mental mindset to be able to be there for them because you're tired, you're exhausted, you're juggling everything, you're frustrated, you're snapping at everybody in your life, and you're
Yes.
basically now needing to step up and take care of that
and
situation.
to make it easier too, don't you still have a pick-up and drop-off service?
We do, yeah. You pick up, and then we greet them at the gate, and it's like a cute little, probably not cute for those who are picking up and dropping off, but it's like a nice little line and parade. But yeah, to get clinical really quickly, my experience has been that there's a lot of guilt and shame
Sure.
for asking for help and for admitting that you can't do it all. And that, I think, you can attribute it to the perpetual caregiver mentality, because that's what you are, whether it's children or adults. But, I say to my patients, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you should be able to say, I need help sometimes.
Right.
I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Is this rewarding for you?
It's absolutely rewarding. I go home every day and I just feel like I truly, even just by talking with one person or 8 people a day, I feel like there has been a shift and a change in a positive way. And I love it there. And I love Alzheimer's Family Center. It's just one of those places where we all are truly family, patients included.
And then the other question, can you talk about your next event? Is the fundraiser and how much support you need for that?
I absolutely can. So Alzheimer's Family Center, we are putting on a fundraising gala, and it's going to be at the Sherman Library and Gardens in Corona del Mar. It's October 5th, and it starts at 5:30, and we've got just an amazing night planned. It's going to start with like a nice cocktail hour. We're going to have a silent auction and a live auction, gourmet dinner. It's really just a great cause. The funds, all of the proceeds are going to be going towards, helping fund our programs, providing us services, basically so we can help reach more
We need to go there.
families. Yeah, we really could use, like if you want to, sponsor or if you want to attend, you can come to our website, and that's www.afscenter.org. And there you can find, even more information and buy yourself a ticket. Like I said, all proceeds are going to help us reach more families, more patients with dementia, and really try
Are you
to help.
looking to expand?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, we would love it. We're the only adult day health center in Orange County that is focused strictly on dementia, and only one of 6 in all of California. So there is a need, and we are, hoping to really fill that need if we can.
So again, let me repeat the statistics. Okay, by 2060 in Orange County alone, 26.1% of the population will be 65 years and older. Okay, Paul, you're already past that point. But all right, and in some communities like what used to be Leisure World, which has now been rebranded Laguna Woods, it's 82%. Okay, so when Angelica says there's 6 centers in California and only 1 in Orange County, and she said specifically focused on dementia, because there are a couple of other ones in Orange County, but it's like everything elderly.
Yes.
Right, and there's some good ones that are basically covered by the state or by certain cities or whatever, but relevant to this specific thing. And 50 to 100 patients, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot for our little building.
How
Absolutely.
many people do you have there working at your facility?
At any time, we usually have about 30 people working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I want to point out. When you find yourself in that situation, you start asking some critical questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you go, I'm just going to put my parent in an assisted living or in a care facility. Make sure you ask things like, well, what's the ratio of
right.
caregivers to patients? Okay, and talk to some of these caregivers, because if you put your parent in a place where, again, there's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame that's associated with this, right? So you're basically caring for somebody, and then you realize that, there's like 10 patients or 10 guests to one caregiver, and that caregiver basically runs through an 8-hour cycle shift. Basically, the amount of time interaction between the caregiver and the patient versus the patient just being left alone, those are some of the things that you should look into. And again, these are
Very
some of the things that
critical.
nobody really talks about.
Yeah, because you don't know till you're in
You
it.
don't even know how to ask the question,
Yeah,
honestly.
That's
right?
another thing that we provide in counseling is like, what questions do you need to be asking yourself, others, those who are in charge of your loved ones? Absolutely.
Paul, I want to ask you something, because this is the quietest I've ever had you be on this show. No, and I know that you have a personal journey that you dealt with as a caregiver for your parents and then your
Absolutely.
aunt, right?
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
now you and I started this show 9 years ago. Okay, do you feel better 9 years later? Do you feel this need, this reality has improved? Maybe only our awareness of it has improved. What I want that baby boomer position.
I think we're still hiding our head in the sand. Until you have to go through it, you don't think about it.
Yes.
And when you go through it, you try and tell everybody you know, and they kind of go, oh, that's real interesting, but I got to go.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear about it. So most of my friends at my age have lost their parents. Many of them have lost them through dementia or Parkinson's. And when you get Parkinson's, you often get dementia, as your dad did, as my mom did. And wow, it is an isolate. You feel overwhelmed. You're not ready for it. Nobody there to talk to you about it. And your friends just look the other way. They don't know what to say. So I think it's still a subject that we don't face or deal with. And because of that, we're not ready for it, either financially or physically or...
But don't you wish you knew
more.
about the center?
I do, and I wish that more that I had been open to talking about. In a weird way, that's why Rad and I both sort of were preparing ourselves and talking about this stuff, because as I was going through it then, he went through it later. I did it 3 times because
we organically formed a support group, which we didn't know we were forming, basically, because he had just gone through with his mom,
and I'm going through my dad, and then my mom
and his aunt in the desert, and he had the physical distance component added to that mix, and then I went through it, and I'll tell you something. I mean, nobody really wants to go through this.
No.
Nobody wants to really talk about it, but there is power and strength in talking about it. And
Absolutely.
Seriously, because it's going to roll over. I mean, they talk about the silver tsunami as being people getting older.
That's my favorite.
I'm like, dude, the silver salami, the worst
silver
aspect
salami.
of this.
Don't touch that one.
The worst, don't touch the silver salami.
Silver salami. I like that one.
That's a story for another show, because that's another interesting side of this whole elder generation thing. I mean, I keep waiting to walk into this room and then walk straight out, Paul, but that's a different story. No, but the silver tsunami, and everybody's like, oh, the silver tsunami. We got a clever name for this thing, which is like basically the silver tsunami is the aging of America, aging of the world, actually. It's not just America, and how this is just going to be this big tidal wave, right?
Yes.
But this tidal wave isn't just going to softly land on the shore. This tidal wave is what happens when you have like an earthquake in the middle of the Japanese Ocean, and then cities are obliterated. This thing,
I would say you need to learn how to surf on it.
Yeah, or run away.
You got to ride the wave.
And so again, if you are ahead of the curve right now, but you anticipate that this is going to be the case, take that time and educate yourself. Reach out to people. Maybe even look into some support groups in advance, to be honest with you, because I didn't do that, and that would have been very helpful. Like to actually establish some connection with some support groups. If you have elderly parents or people with needs, it's the same as if you have a child with special needs and all of a sudden you find yourself in that situation. At some point, you're going to have to find some humbleness and some empathy and some self-care and courage to actually seek out and ask for help.
And I will say,
Absolutely.
talk to your neighbors.
Talk to anybody.
Talk to anybody.
Like, keep
but
that
your
open.
neighbors may need your help.
I mean, don't just pull over the traffic light and say to the guy in the next car, say, hey,
no,
by the way, tell me about your situation. But I mean, like, talk to people you encounter,
your street neighbors.
Can you imagine? Hey, buddy, do you have an issue with parents? Like, have you faced...
Pull down your window.
But I mean, we're
I've
joking.
done that. That was my first 30-day stint in jail. Anyway.
Another topic for another show. But again, okay, the show's called The RAAD Life. Part of that is being prepared. Honestly, like you cannot know enough, because to Paul's point, to what I was trying to share, what Angelica's saying is, when you face it, it's all new. You've never faced this before. You're in it now. Whatever preparedness you've done will help.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you one thing
You
that
serve,
I
so
feel
to speak.
better about, knowing that there's angels like Angelica out there.
Oh, thank you.
The old
See?
the old PR pro
I
goes
love
out.
that. Okay.
But I think we can end on that.
Yeah.
Or
I just say
you're not going to
one-
play any 70s music,
No,
are you?
no.
Can I just
Okay.
say one thing?
Yes.
Alzheimer's Family Center provides free caregiver support every Tuesday. It's via Zoom, so go to our website if you're interested, if you are a caregiver.
And where is
So-
the website?
You
And the
say,
website
you say
is-
free. Is there any
Caregiver support.
medical insurance support?
Yes. So if your loved one if you think about placing your loved one in an adult day health center. We are contracted through the VA, so there's options there through Medicare. We also offer scholarships when we have them, grants when we have them. So absolutely go to our website, www.afscenter.org, for our event coming up October 5th, and for free caregiver support every Tuesday via Zoom. And if you want to know more about Adult Day Health Center at Alzheimer's Family Center.
I'll end with this. We celebrated my aunt's 90th birthday 2 months ago in Chicago. My aunt is, if anybody's seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, my aunt is Aunt Vula. She's the 4'0" with the matching sweater set, right? She was a kindergarten teacher. Once you're a kindergarten teacher, for life you are a teacher. You're a kindergarten teacher. We have all these cousins and stuff. We all will attest to the fact that she's still a kindergarten teacher. But the thing about my aunt, which is really cool, she never had kids. She took care of my grandparents. And she lived in the house that my grandparents were in until it got to the point where it's too much for her. And we moved her to an apartment complex with about 300 apartments. Okay? She made friends.
Yeah.
When she was in the house before she moved to the apartment, for a couple of years, okay, my aunt, who was in her 70s and 80s, volunteered at the senior center.
That's a great one. That's a great way to get your
Okay,
socialization
exactly.
in.
And she would go and hang out with her friends, and she went on cruises with her friends. I cannot tell you how important that social component is. And we get all sucked up into our work and our social environments at work. And, people drift and move and all this stuff. But you got to make a conscious effort to build that social network around you, to pull on when you need, because you will need it. And part of that equation is places like you guys.
Yeah, we have a great community with our patients. Our caregivers love and support us, and vice versa. And so it is absolutely imperative that you tell your people that you love them and continue to create a community around you.
So give us the site one more time, and then we'll bookmark it everywhere here
Okay.
for the future.
www.afscenter.org.
And there's a lot of ways to volunteer and help. There's a major need, seriously,
100%,
right? And the quickest way you're going to prepare yourself, honestly, to maybe when it comes right to your door and it's in your family, is to actually volunteer in a situation where it's not you personally. You have a little bit of that distance, but you're also experiencing it close enough that when it comes to your turn, that happens. I mean, trust me. Listen, if I don't show up every week here and provide adult daycare for Paul,
I wonder.
I feel guilty.
I wonder.
He wanders. He wanders the hall of UCI.
Now I know why you come to.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's a commitment.
Here's the thing. I come in and provide therapy and adult daycare to Paul once a week for the last 7
7
years, and I pay him.
Exactly.
So, Paul, it's
it's a win-win situation. Adult daycare for Paul Roberts.
There you go.
So I'm going to say thank
We have
you.
to set up a nonprofit for you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
to
I
all.
really appreciate
Really
it. This
enjoyed
has
it.
been really a
Really
great
enjoyed.
combo.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
No, absolutely. And she's an angel. Just get out there, man. Get out there and find out about this. That tsunami.
Coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's here. Really,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So prepare yourself. Learn how to surf.
Yes. Thanks, Paul.